Voicing out
People
does
should
not
review
only
and
feels
examine
great
their
that
own
the
lives,
what
what
is
is
absolutely
reliable
going to
to
revive our
facts
social
I think he's the one that this country needs.
Voting is a responsibility given to the citizens of a country to elect an officer to serve as public servants in the government. This ability to elect and give voice to the people is part of what we call a democracy.
The right of suffrage is something people have fought for across the globe. Women had rallied up in arms to fight for the chance to vote like their fellow male citizens as early as the 1800s. And even now, people continue to defy and fight for their rights if they feel the threat arising.
So now that we have this ballot in our hands, why should we pass on the opportunity to elect a competent and rightful leader? Now is the time we stop to consider and vote wisely. Listen closely.
Why is voting so essential? We as voters and as members of a diverse society have the right and responsibility to decide the quality of life we want, not just for ourselves, but for our fellow men and our children in the future generation. We as voters and as members of a society are given the chance to stand up and address the issues we see in our surroundings, to take control of our direction by choosing a wise leader that could lead us to the prosperity we desperately need and crave. It is a responsibility just as much as it is a right because we now hold in our hands the ability to elect people that make the country function. We've seen the lies, the deception, the corruption, and malpractices going on in the system without properly considering that we could do something about it. As voters and as members of a society, it is our duty to exercise our right to elect better people that can reduce all the lies and corruption and malpractices going on behind the scenes. Voting gives us the chance to do so. It gives us the chance to choose wise leaders if we ourselves are wise voters. It's time we stop just speaking out on the sideline and take the helm, invoke our rights and vote for someone who is worthy of being our leader.
Why do we advocate for this exactly? At the present, we are facing an upcoming election. As such, we feel it's an extremely relevant topic and needs the utmost attention of our fellow citizens. In our current time, we can see that there are a lot of matters, issues, arguments, and such over politicians going on in social media, with every person voicing out their own sides and perspective on their preferred candidates. Every scroll, every post has candidate names and information blatantly on them. And because of the nature of where these are being made, information spreads quicker to a bigger number of people. With the spread of activity in the realm of the net, we can say that it can potentially be an affecting factor to those who are still in the haze of making their decisions. There are people who are easily impressionable or are just going with the flow. Their scales could tip, their decision making is on the rocks, and they base simply on fame, publicity, appearance, and impressions. As voters and as members of a society, the decision for our future rulers should not be from reasons as weak as peer pressure, fake news, or putting up appearances in recent months instead of seriously considering what they did and what they could do for their citizens. Hear beyond the voices floating around. Ascertain information on your own accord. Know your facts.
Now we ask the most important question. What is happening when elections are just around the corner? It all starts with a week-long registration process that eventually spirals into a few months of noisy campaigning for all the open positions. We've seen all this popping around when elections are near, when suddenly commercials and billboards and names are scattered everywhere, which are normally as loud and noisy, is to get noticed and rally people on their side. The battle first starts off with who can charm more followers with charisma, as candidates stands on stage. The judgment on them comes down to who has more skills and celebrities to endorse them than for their actual policies. This could almost be mistaken for a festival, probably if the toot of a horn could be replaced with a gangbang, somewhere in the dark alley. Campaigns will mostly be taken on the digital stage of social media, given the state of the country due to the global pandemic. It becomes a more liberating platform. However, for those candidates that are lesser known, because as we know, personality and name recognition wins in this race. But like constant water, it still flows. So when an electoral worker comes knocking, answer at your own risk. So, do yourself and everyone a favor by getting yourself registered and showing up at the precinct.
Wait, what do we do in elections? I just turned 18.
I'm so scared of the outcome. I'm not even sure if I chose the right president for this country. I don't know what to do.
I need tips for elections. Please just tag me if there's any.
You know what we need for the 2022 elections? A list on what we do during elections in order for those people who are currently in the dark to know exactly what they need to perform correctly.
We are in need for proper education in these elections. Articles for tips on before, during, and after elections are highly needed.
I need answers. I'm so glad with our technology, I could just search for the tips.
The only tip I could give is to vote for the rightful leaders. Duh, nothing else.
We all know that the 2022 elections are just behind the curtains.
So now, these are the 3 essential tips for before, during, and after elections.
Social media is one of the sources of new information in our era. And it's not new that people tend to post a variety of information for public entertainment, regardless of it being fake news. And that is the sole reason why we'll give you separate fact from fiction. You need to choose your sources of information wisely. Look for voices you can trust, and don't believe everything you read and hear. Verify, verify, verify.
During elections, after you have done your research about the candidates, the next thing you should do is to prepare your cheat sheet of chosen candidates and bring it with you on the day of the elections, so you don't panic when the ballot is in front of you. May your list of candidates be full of names that will do good and do well not just for you, but for the whole country.
Lastly, after elections, there are numerous words of wisdom out there, but here is a tip for everyone. Do not forget these words of wisdom. The political process does not end on election day. Young people need to stay involved in the process by continuing to pay attention to the conversation and holding their leaders accountable for the decisions they make. That quote is from Patrick Murphy, who is an American politician and attorney.
People should know whom they will support, especially in social media that a lot of people can see and influence.
Exactly. Especially now that almost all people are using this as means of communication, entertainment, or expressing themselves. It is not tolerable to have such fake news on this platform.
It is not wrong to educate people, especially if it gives benefit to all of the people. Knowing that there is a candidate in the highest position of the government who is trying to be part of Malacanang again, even though they don't deserve it, gives us a reason to stand and voice out.
It is unreasonable to give our trust again to their family. Yes, the Philippines needs a leader who is brave enough to protect their people, but there are a lot of definitions of being brave. Don't let them get away with what brutality they have done to the Filipinos back then.
Aside from that,
There are numerous pages and posts from social media that claim to deny the human rights violations and the corruption circulating to the government during the regime. Indeed, it could lead to misinformation to the audiences and readers of their actions.
Our trust is so important that we must not give it immediately to people or even to the sources that we always read online. It is still important to examine its credibility and gather other information before educating others about that matter. Remember that awareness alone is not enough. Knowing, understanding, and remembering what happened in the past is important because it is part of our history that gives us what we have today.
Right. We should never move on unless justice has been served to them. They must be liable to their actions, knowing that they are spreading fake news, have bad reputation, and even have numerous attempts to return to Malacanang. Filipinos should think twice. For around 360 pages and 260 groups in social media, Filipinos should be hesitant and open their eyes to reality because these pages and groups can be hindrance to the truth that lies within the facts.